Hello, how are you? If you need to lose 40 pounds or more, you're going to love this video because I've put together 10 interesting strategies for you to start putting into practice today and get quick, lasting, and healthy results. You're going to love this video. Stay until the end because you won't want to miss it. Before we start, I want to ask you, how much do you want to lose? Write it for me down below in the comments. And how long have you been gaining weight? Was it something that happened quickly? Or was it something that happened over time and when you realized it, you had already gained a lot of weight? Tell me a little more about your story so I can bring more information to help you. If you can, go ahead and leave a like on the video. This is super important to me. It shows YouTube that you support the channel and that you trust my content. And if you know someone who is struggling to lose weight, a friend, a family member who needs some scientifically proven tips that can help with this process in a healthy way, share this video. Let's expand our chain of kindness. That's what I want here with the channel. The first thing you should do if you want to lose more than 40 pounds is to pay attention to your diet and try to cut out as many liquid calories as possible. Many people consume a lot of high-calorie foods in liquid form without realizing it. These are people who, for example, switched from soda to natural juice thinking it's healthier. In fact, it is, but it's still quite high in calories. These are people who consume sweetened yogurt, those coffees with lots of whipped cream, heavy cream, condensed milk, So these processed drinks, sometimes even those energy drinks to give you more energy, those canned energy drinks, all of that contains liquid calories, which cause your glucose to spike very quickly because it's liquid, right? It doesn't require any kind of processing by our body. And they're calorically concentrated. Sometimes when you look at the number of calories in a glass of one of these drinks, it's as if you were eating 2 or 3 slices of bread. And people often don't even realize this. So when you start cutting out the amount of liquid calories from your routine, you'll already see a pretty interesting metabolic effect and for weight control as well. Besides that, another interesting point is that these liquid calories end up not giving you the satiety you were looking for. That's because when you consume a food that's liquid but very high in calories, a lot of glucose actually enters your bloodstream. The body will try to counterbalance this by secreting a lot of insulin, and then you'll experience a drop in glucose afterward. So you might actually end up stimulating your hunger and appetite even more than if you had eaten a food containing fiber, fat, or protein to help sustain your glucose levels throughout the day. This isn't necessarily related to people with diabetes or prediabetes. It's really about the weight loss process, and it's a very important tip. Another thing that's extremely important for you to pay attention to and try to consume more of in your daily routine. Because when we think about losing weight, there are foods we actually need to increase in our diet is protein-rich foods. This is very interesting because when protein is absorbed and metabolized in our body, it increases satiety hormones such as GLP-1. And you know that I have videos here on the channel talking about how those weight loss pens stimulate the secretion of GLP-1 in our bodies. So they're really trendy these days, right? Ozempic, Mounjaro. Protein helps us increase this hormone, which we also produce naturally. Of course, I'm not trying to compare their effects to those of the pens, but I'm telling you that this is something you can stimulate in your own body by eating the right foods. Besides that, we know that protein helps slow down the absorption rate of foods, which helps increase satiety. It also helps improve, once again, this issue of blood sugar control, which you already understand is not only important for those living with diabetes, but also to prevent that sudden hunger that sometimes comes on quickly. It helps preserve muscle mass and increase muscle mass if you also exercise. And it also increases the thermic effect of digestion because it requires more energy to be metabolized. Protein is a food that uses up energy when it needs to be metabolized in order to be absorbed by our body. So in practice, this means you'll feel less hungry, have less desire to snack throughout the day, and thus have more control over your food choices. Protein gives us this beneficial effect. And a very common mistake that many people make is to concentrate their protein intake only at lunch and dinner, right? So remember that breakfast, snacks, supper, if you have that meal, are also meals that need protein. Ideally, you should spread your protein intake throughout the day to maintain that feeling of satiety and blood sugar control, which will help you in the weight loss process. The third thing is to remember your vegetables. Vegetables are important. Many people who are very overweight sometimes even like vegetables, but end up not eating them. They start eating more processed, industrialized foods, quick things, buying ready-made lasagna, frozen pizza, breaded chicken from the supermarket. More processed foods and fewer vegetables, fewer fresh foods. When we eat more of these fresh foods, leafy greens, vegetables, fruits, we're able to improve our gut microbiota. This is a very important point. Nowadays, we already know the role of the gut microbiota in weight loss and in maintaining body weight. And in addition, we know that the proteins, vitamins, and minerals present in vegetables are also very important for the weight loss process. Vegetables usually contain fiber, and when they reach our intestines, they form a gel that reduces insulin spikes. Once again, it increases satiety, improves the issue of gut microbiota. When I mentioned this to you earlier, it's because we already know that when the gut is unbalanced, we can have more low-grade chronic inflammation, more insulin resistance, and more hunger. So when we increase our vegetable intake, we're not just eating fewer calories, we're also improving this metabolic environment as well. There's still another very important point to mention, which is the volume that vegetables occupy in our stomach, right? Because usually when you take a zucchini, when you take an eggplant, a pumpkin, kale, arugula, you take a plate of that, you'll see that the amount of calories compared to a plate of potatoes, rice, beans, meat, or any other higher calorie food, the volume is much greater and the calories are much lower. So it falls into what's called the volumetric diet. I even have a video here on the channel talking more about this. It's an excellent strategy if you need to lose a lot of weight because vegetables have a lot of volume, take up a lot of space in our stomach, and have few calories. And there are people who say, I don't know how to eat vegetables because I only know how to saute them with garlic and onion or steam them. It tastes like hospital food, sick people's food. I don't like it. Remember that I have several delicious vegetable-based recipes here, which are the main recipes in the vegetarian recipes playlist. You don't need to be a vegetarian to enjoy them, but they are focused on vegetables. So you can make these recipes and add some chicken, fish, meat, or an egg to complement them if you want or not. I'll leave this playlist below to help you as well. Another very important point is hydration. This often ends up being ignored by us, but staying hydrated throughout the day is essential, especially if you are in the process of losing weight for several reasons. First, because many reactions happen in an aqueous environment. This includes fat-burning reactions. So if you are dehydrated or not fully hydrated, it can negatively affect your fat-burning metabolism. Second, the hunger center and the thirst center are very close to each other in our brain. So sometimes you're actually thirsty, but if your body doesn't interpret this signal correctly, it thinks you're hungry. And you end up eating, not hydrating yourself, and you keep feeling like nothing is working. So this could also be something that's happening to you. In addition, we know that drinking water throughout the day helps with our satiety, improves cellular function, and can reduce calorie intake, especially when you drink water before meals. One strategy that many people who need to lose a lot of weight use is to drink a large glass of water about 15-20 minutes before the meal so that the water already takes up space in your stomach, and as a result, you end up eating less at your main meal. So there's also a behavioral detail that studies have been observing. People who drink little water tend to consume more ultra-palatable foods. They seek out those flavors that are overly sour, crunchy, sweet, salty. This may be related to the issue of hunger being mistaken for thirst once again. So a practical tip for you could be to try to drink about half an ounce of water per pound of body weight each day. I have a video here talking about how much water you should drink, how to drink it, and tips for getting your daily water intake. I'll leave it down below in the description for you as well. Another very important thing, if you want to lose more than 40 pounds, if you want to lose a significant amount of weight, you need to increase your daily energy expenditure. It's not just about exercising. Nowadays, there's this concept that science has already established. It's a funny term, active couch potato, for someone just sitting on the couch most of the day. These are people who exercise sometimes for an hour a day, maybe even a little more, but then spend the rest of the entire day sitting, either working or really not doing any physical activity, right? People who don't have a physically active job, or in short, don't move around much. Sometimes you work sitting at a computer or on the phone or, attending to people. Sitting all day long is very bad for your metabolism. When, in addition to targeted physical activity, we manage to increase our daily energy expenditure by walking, standing up, moving around, staying active, and avoiding sitting for many hours, we drastically increase our energy expenditure throughout the day. And even better, we greatly improve our metabolism. Nowadays, we already know of people who have more cardiovascular problems and even liver issues, like fatty liver, from spending many hours sitting, even if they do targeted physical exercise. So physical activity isn't just about exercising for an hour a day, I don't know if that's clear, but about being a more active person overall. Park farther away, walk more, get off one stop earlier, take the stairs, sweep the house instead of just vacuuming. These are things you can do to increase your daily physical activity. They're small things, but at the end of the day have a huge impact on your weight loss. Another extremely important thing is sleep. We know that if you sleep poorly, losing weight becomes harder, and it's not just because of tiredness. We know that sleep regulates important hormones like ghrelin, which increases hunger, and leptin, which signals satiety. And there's also the fact that when you sleep poorly, besides feeling hungrier, you crave more high-calorie foods and have less control over your eating. Besides that, of course, when you're sleepier, you won't have the energy to do your exercise routine. Sometimes you won't even feel like thinking about how to eat properly or spending time in the kitchen cooking and planning. You just want everything to be as easy as possible without having to be too careful or put in too much effort because you're already tired and stressed. So getting enough sleep is extremely important. I even have a playlist here on how to improve your sleep. I'll leave it down below in the description for you. Another important thing is to try to change the environment where you live and work by reducing the amount of unhealthy foods in those places. Because what the eyes don't see, the heart doesn't feel. So if you're hungry, but you have chips, snacks, or a little chocolate available, if you're tired and there's a nugget or instant noodles at home, of course you're going to go for that. So if you can organize your meals when you're feeling more energetic, more motivated, with more drive, do it then. Some people set aside certain times of the day or specific days to pre-prepare food, at least some things they know will make things easier. For example, some people use Sunday to make breakfast for the whole week and keep it in the fridge, or they make sandwiches for the entire week and leave them either frozen or in the fridge, so they can just eat them throughout the week. You can prepare meat or beans or vegetables and store them in containers in portions. This can be an interesting strategy for you. It reduces the need for you to make decisions when you're tired, and it might also lower the chances of you ordering food, eating out, or having those snacks that are usually higher in calories. One thing that's important for you to keep in mind is to have realistic expectations and not be harder on yourself than you should. When we have a lot of weight to lose, if it's more than 40 pounds, you can't expect to lose that in 1 or 2 months. It didn't take you 1 or 2 months to gain that weight. So why are you demanding that from your body like that? Be kinder to yourself. Usually, there are people who, sometimes even in the first or second week, manage to lose weight quickly when they do everything just right because there's a reduction in muscle glycogen and, along with that, a process of water loss, so they lose a lot of swelling. So, you might see a drastic drop on the scale in the first few weeks, but after that, it tends to become more gradual. And that's okay. What studies usually indicate is that the healthiest approach is to lose about 1 to 2 pounds per week. So you shouldn't aim to lose 20 pounds in a month because that might not be good for your health. It can cause hair loss, loss of muscle mass, sagging skin, anemia, fatigue, as well as other metabolic problems, even issues with your gallbladder, pancreas, and more serious conditions. So ideally, this weight loss process should be sustainable in the medium and long term so that you also don't experience that rebound effect, that yo-yo effect where you lose weight very quickly and then gain it back just as fast. So if you can set micro goals for yourself, for example, if you need to lose 40 pounds, focus on just 5 at first. Once you reach those 5, then another 5, then another 5. This way you can see that you are actually achieving your goals. Because when the goal is 40, it takes longer and we might get discouraged. Another important thing is to remember that we can't always base our weight loss solely on the number on the scale. There are weeks when the scale might not even move. Especially if you're a woman and have hormonal fluctuations like premenstrual, menstrual variations, bloating, and so on. So ideally, you should also focus on your daily energy, the consistency you've maintained, and of course, on your clothes and appearance. Sometimes you notice that the number on the scale hasn't changed that much, but those pants that used to be tight are now fitting looser, has a better fit for you. So the number on the scale can fool you. If you also want to take measurements with a measuring tape, it can even be one of those sewing tapes that are easier to find. It just can't be an elastic or stretchable tape. It has to be a tape that doesn't stretch. You can measure your waist, your arms, your legs to keep track of how these measurements decrease from week to week. This can even be a more interesting indicator than just your weight. So if I had to start now with a strategy to lose 40 pounds or more, what would I do? The first thing, I would definitely cut out liquid calories. Then I would increase my protein and vegetables a lot, adjust my water intake, and finally, I would increase the amount of physical exercise I do throughout the day. This routine, if you do it consistently, it will help you in the medium to long term to achieve excellent results. At first, like I told you, you'll lose a lot of water, a lot of fluids, glycogen. And then by doing this consistently, you'll see that you can get there. So do this, then come back here to tell me how your process is going. I would love to see your comment. Remember to like the video, that's really important to me. And if you know someone who could benefit from these tips, share this video. Let's help more people. See you next time. Bye.